Out Institute. Many of you guys know that Todd's usually one on the interviewer seat, but I kind of want to switch things up a little bit, and I want to interview him. He's got so much input, so much insights that we would really all benefit from. So feel free to comment, where you're dialing in from, where you're watching this. I know I had a lot of people message me and say, "Hey, when is your live going on?" Especially with the topic that we're having today. And so for those who don't know who Todd is, if you don't mind me speaking highly about you, Todd, Todd's been an entrepreneur for many, many years, like 15, 20 years. Has helped a lot of people, had a lot of success in many different businesses. And, he's also the author of You versus You, an amazing, powerful book that talks about the battles that we deal with on a conscious level, whether it's you versus your persona, you versus your finances. And there's just these battles that we're trying to overcome, but maybe we don't have the right direction. I really believe it's because you don't have the right coach. And Todd's been out there just helping others and transforming other people's lives. And today we want to talk about a very sensitive subject, which is the how to really overcome the trauma from
birth control,
a broken home. And so, can you hear me okay, by the way?
Oh, you said very, very sensitive topic. I was like, birth control. No, I'm just kidding.
Besides birth control. Yeah. So, but yeah, let's talk about broken homes. And, I have a couple of things I want to share from like an energetic subconscious level. And then I want to kind of ask you kind of like how you overcome it on a conscious level. So we're going to play a little ping pong here.
Love it.
In mind. And if anyone has any questions too, we might have a quick second where I might look at your question and Todd might answer or I might answer. We want to have a kind of an interactive talk here. But the first thing is I know personally, because of the clients I worked with for 6 years, we have a cortisol epidemic. But what I mean is that we are in a constant fight or flight sort of situation. We don't know the difference between you fighting a bear and the difference between you fighting your husband or your wife or having parents be emotionally, physically, sexually abusive. It's the same thing to your body. Your body is in a fight or flight situation. Obviously, if we're kids, we're probably in a flight situation. We're trying to run away or trying to get away. But one of the things that I've noticed in the body code, and if you're taking notes here, anyone, is there's a thing called like a physical emotional shock. And that's a really interesting thing. Like the fact that how many of you guys comment below where someone sort of like felt like punched you in the stomach, or your father said something to you like, we never wanted you anyway. Like, you're just like, it like affects you and it almost feels like a train hit you. And the best way I like to picture it is that like there's an energetic train all over you and it's like still stuck in your body from the train crash that happened. So that's something that's really happening in the body code. So Todd, maybe you can talk about that. Like when things remind you about maybe what your parents have done to you before in your broken home, it can trigger you. In my case, I might find a physical emotional shock. What do you do to kind of like calm yourself down and kind of react differently? What do you do on the conscious level?
Well, I can only speak from my own personal perspective, and everyone has their own personal perspective. I just want to share a story with you guys that I think was pretty powerful for my healing. When I was in college, I was 19 years old. It was my freshman year in college. I wrote a letter to my father, and this letter was just, and I'm not going to get into the details now because again, he's much older now, and we've really done some amazing work, and I really love him now more than ever. But we've had a lot of problems growing up and, stuff, that, I don't want to talk about publicly, but I did write him a letter and I said I was going to, I'm forgiving him. Like I forgive him for everything. And I know, and that was part of something that I think anytime as an adult, and I look at like even, David's life in Psalms, there's parts of David's life, King David, where he pulled himself out of certain situations himself. And I think if we can, on the conscious side, just kind of understand and subconscious, like, okay, if we have these triggers, how can we just like pull ourselves out of it ourselves and forgive those people that made those triggers? And you might say, well, Todd, I was this and I was that. And I get it. There's a lot of different forms of trauma, and I don't want to bring up different traumas right now for people because I know it's very tough to talk about, especially on Facebook. You're probably just scrolling, hey, I want to see a golden retriever. Oh, there's Emmanuel and Todd, and they're talking about blah, blah, blah. Okay, now I'm going to have nightmares. But it's a real situation. So I think the forgiveness thing is huge. And I know that people hate to hear this because when I first heard this, it was a year and a half ago, and I was at Choice University, and I'm a 3-time graduate. And it's in Vegas, and this was before COVID. You could just go there, and they still do workshops now with masks. But I was like pissed when the trainer, who was in a suit and tie, he was probably in his 70s, he said, if you want a relationship to last, and because everyone's asking him because he was married for like 50 years, he's like, because that's a great question. How'd you get married? How are you married for like 40, 50 years? He said, it's all my fault. And I'm like, whoa, what? So repeat that. He's like, no, everything's my fault. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, so for 50 years, your wife was perfect and you just took all the blame. I mean, that seems to me like, that's just someone that you're just, walking all over and everything. And then he finished this statement. He said, and my wife thinks it's all her fault too. And that's kind of a very healthy relationship to be in, where if you weren't in a healthy relationship with your parents, if you can find a relationship where you always take personal responsibility for yourself, and the thing is, even if you're single, that's going to manifest. So you're going to attract a partner or friends or colleagues or business partnerships that they take responsibility. And it's almost like a game. It's like, no, bro, I know, my bad. Kind of like in basketball, it's like, my bad, no, my bad. I got you. I'll get you next time. I'm sorry. That was my fault. And that's how a great team is built, when someone's always saying, my bad, my bad. Mm-hmm. So I think these triggers, I think if we could just sit in the grief of, or the stillness of when it does trigger us, to be like, okay, let me pause. And I know that's easier said than done. So as you and I know, the true way to pause is through meditation. So obviously with these amazing devices called phones, I can take these amazing devices called, whatever, Dre Beats, whatever, $250, but I can literally take 5 minutes out of my day when I'm triggered and go lay down and just put on a YouTube meditation, just sit in that stillness, kind of like the Matrix when, Keanu Reeves is like in pause and the bullets are going, kind of in that out of body experience when you are triggered. And then habitually that's going to help you in a positive way, because you're creating a habit for at least 21 days in a row where you're not triggered by that person anymore or triggered by your past. And I think in parenting, let's be honest, if we've had parents that triggered us when we were kids, when we're parenting our kids, that's going to come out. And I remember a few times, unfortunately, in my own parenting, when it came to my son, I kind of went off on him. I didn't like beat him or hurt him, but I screamed. I remember 2 times in like 12 years that I really was like, holy crap. Like I had to take a step back and be like, I'm like my dad, was to me. So I think that's scary, but it's also a place of humility. And I think we all can build on that once we're self-aware of that.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful. Stillness can teach us a lot about what's going on. I'm just getting into golf, and I love the fact that in my mind I'm just like ball hole, but I love the real golfer who he checks the topography and says the curve, so it goes left. So it's like studying like what's really happening, And I with relating what you said, it reminds me of my mother when I remember trying to give her a hug, and she passed away, so rest in peace. But I tried to give her a hug, and I just remember how like stiff she was, like a cardboard. And I remember going like, why are you so awkward, And this very amazing wisdom that says my mother used to, I never got this from my parents, so that's just how I am, And then also, if you remember, did you watch the movie Peaceful Warrior at all?
Nick Nolte.
Nick Nolte, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but one of my favorite parts is where Nick Nolte takes the guy, the main character, the protagonist, in like an outer body experience. They're hanging out at the top of the gym, and they're looking over everybody and how they think. And people all bully him on a daily basis, but they bully themselves, but he just doesn't know it.
Yeah.
So it comes back to that whole statement of like, if you want to gain peace, forgive everyone, because hurt people hurt people.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's all they know how to react. And so this is great stuff. So another thing I want to talk about, and this is also another beautiful, sensitive subject that I want to bring out there, but spanking is a very controversial thing too, and old school wise, people, it was just the regular thing. It was normal. Now I feel like, child protection services are going to knock on your door because they heard an extra loud slap from your place. But what's interesting is that I want to look at it from a body code perspective, is that, again, I'm going to go back to that physical emotional shock that when you hit someone, you didn't expect someone to hit you, it's somewhat of an emotional trauma, And then sometimes I ask in the body code session, I'll say, is there something below this? And sometimes there's like a ringing energy of nervousness that's now in there. So now this person has a tendency to be nervous in certain life situations because they have a ringing energy that's still ringing in there, what are your thoughts in regards to parenting? And I know obviously this is all our opinion, but
everyone's different. It's hard to.
Everyone's different or whatever.
Yeah,
but I feel honestly that it's done more damage for me in my situation.
Yeah.
So I don't do it to my kids. So this is kind of like what I've resolved. What are your thoughts on that? Just kind of curious.
I love what Jacqueline Weiss said. She said, in my native culture, which is an amazing culture, if you spank your child, it beats the spirit out of them. I've never spanked my children. I know in the Bible it says, spare the rod, you spare the child, and stuff like that, or you ruin the child. I mean, I just first of all, I have 2 girls, and I'm very happy to report that my oldest, who's 14, which I'm going to interview her soon. She's like, I hate to say it, and actually I don't hate to say it, I'm so proud to say it, she's so peaceful. Like, she's like a little peaceful warrior. Like, she's not really bad. Like, she doesn't really do anything bad. Like, she's just amazing. Like, I'm very blessed. Very strong too. And my son, I could see maybe, but I think with my son, just take his phone away or take his iPad away. I think that's worse than spanking. And then just really talk with him. I think with my son, if I really just sit down and talk with him and have a heart to heart with him, and just feel like I'm doing this because, and you're not able to do this, but here's what we can do about it. I love, like, if we have a problem, what is the solution? But there has to be punishment. I do believe in punishment. I do believe in jail. I do believe, thank God, there's jails, in this country, in prison. And I think sometimes people are like, well, we shouldn't have prison. Well, there's certain actions that you have to go to jail for. You have to, or you have to get penalized by the court. And I do believe in that. But as far as, punishment, even with the death penalty, it's like, it's hard to believe in the death penalty too. It's like, yeah, kill a man and then we're going to kill you. And I just always had a problem with that. It's a very yucky kind of subject and very kind of hard to talk about that. But I just don't spank my children, but I use other alternatives though. I don't let them get away with murder. I don't let them get away with stuff because we also know that entitlement, I think as a parent, you have to be very, very scared of entitlement because that could lead to narcissism. It could lead to, and when like a dad, like daddies, and this is what, and Tony Robbins talks about it. Yeah, and I got to just say this for at least 60 seconds here because it's an important topic. Sure. When you watch the Tony Robbins I'm Not Your Guru on Netflix, he's very, very soft-spoken, very calm, breaks down and cries to some of the women, but there's that one woman who he doesn't cry, and he gives it to her. And she's going through this divorce, that divorce, but she's daddy's little girl. And this woman's a beautiful woman. I mean, there's nothing wrong with her, but she literally doesn't realize she's daddy's little girl. And so daddy's here, and every man is always going to be here. And I think a lot of divorces happen because of daddy's little girl. And also the culture of America is being a princess and Disney and getting Disney dresses and buying, and I get all that. And it's cool, but there's got to be an age where you're not a princess. There's only a few princesses on this planet. We're not princesses and princes here. We're just human beings, looking at our strengths and finding our passion, but no girl is a princess. So it gives them a false connotation of what kind of, not that they're not valuable, but they think they're almost sometimes too valuable and they don't have to do anything and they could just do whatever they want. And people are just going to allow them and enable them to do that. So I think we do have to be very careful of who we're bringing up in our household, because we do as parents have to think of, okay, when she's 33, and she might be going through her marriage problems, I don't want her to go through a lot of challenging things because of her, or who she picks. And I think a lot of parents pray for their kid spouse, but maybe they're not raising them to be the best version that they can be and not really praying for their spouse. I think we should just pray for our kids as human beings only themselves, because once they really are great within themselves, then the right spouse they're going to attract,
That's great. These are great points, and I hope there's a princess out there listening to this and appreciate the words. And what's interesting is, like, I also feel like what Les Brown once said. He said, it's not what you leave with your kids; it's what you leave in your kids.
Yes.
And I really feel like if we always continue to give and give and give, really, it's, I hate to say this, but it may be you're allowing them to in the future abuse other people because they're expecting something from nothing, and really, I love to tell my kids in a very nice, beautiful way. It's like the world literally owes us nothing. Like the world owes us nothing. Like we all had to just stand up one day and just say, I'm going to put my pants on. I'm just going to just punch this thing until I figure it out, And so those are great comments. So Another thing too I wanted to mention is sometimes in the body code you could find these things called images, and during these images are like little photos, and there's a couple of things. It could be a photo of someone else, it could be a symbol like a teddy bear, it could be really any, or something that is even imagined, something that hasn't even happened. Your body will still create an image. What's interesting about this, for example, is you might make an image of your mother, let's just say. Let's say you came from a home where she was very stubborn, right? So there's two ways this image can manipulate usually a client. And what I notice is that one way is that you become the stubborn mother just like that image, because your body wants to keep you matching with that image. Or it may put you in a state where whenever you see your mom directly, it's hard for you to forgive someone who the body keeps showing you, but your mom's stubborn. Why would you forgive someone like that? So it doesn't allow the forgiveness process to happen. I really admire the fact that you said that you wrote a letter and you shared all you have to say, and that's really powerful. Not everyone can do that, just to be honest, And but what do you think about how has I know I've heard from you personally that you've had some issues at home before, and then what are some examples of you're like, okay, they did this, so I'm not going to do that, or they didn't do this, this is why I'm doing this. Like, is there anything that really stands out for you, the conscious coaching side?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. What really stands out to me is because of certain abuses that have gone on in my life, I think I unfortunately have become immune to it. And also being an athlete and being coached by different coaches who I've had one coach that just loves on me, and I've had other coaches that want to choke me to death, not literally, but just screaming at me and swearing at me. And especially at the collegiate level. I mean, I played for the Denver Broncos backup quarterback Ken Karcher at Liberty University in Division I football, and he wasn't the easiest coach. I mean, he didn't swear and cuss at us, but it was awesome. It was very difficult. And then you play for, I've had many coaches before, so like when I get into the relationship world, I don't even realize it's happening. I really, and I'm almost 40, but the good news is that now, hold on one second. Okay. Now I do realize it. And whether you're 45, 35, 25, or even older than 45, hopefully you have your day. What does Jim Rohn say? He says the day of disgust. And I've always heard that over the years. And I thought like a day of disgust would be I'm homeless or I'm broke, or the day of disgust is like, I have to file bankruptcy, which I never have. But maybe that was my day of disgust, or maybe divorce is a day of disgust, or I don't know. But I think now more than ever, the day of disgust for a lot of people is really being like, wait a minute, I've taken this stuff way too much. And it's a very empowering thing. So when you think of a day of disgust, you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's a bad day. No. The day of disgust is the best way to, like someone said here, we have the day of discovery, where there is that discovery of who you really are. Right. And if we can all step into that power, and we hear all these kind of language and step into your power and discover who you are and transform your life. And, and it sounds like a bunch of hocus pocus, but it is true. So follow me. So once you have that day of disgust, it really breeds this self-awareness, hopefully. Again, if you're a normal person with a logical brain, but if you're a narcissistic or, ego-driven or sociopath, obviously it's not going to help. And I'm guessing no one is that's watching this, but I'm just saying, like, if you're a normal person, you have a heart, you have a brain, you're compassionate towards yourself and other people, this is huge. So once you create that self-awareness, it's going to lead to some choices. Now, this is where it gets tougher the older you get, because you're more conditioned the older you get, and our body, our mind loves consistency. So if you never work out, the body loves you not working out. You might think the opposite, but it's not true. If you always are thinking and overthinking, your body loves it. They're like, okay, let's overthink now. Hey, is this the time that you're gonna, wallow in your sorrows for the next 3 hours? This is exciting. This is what your subconscious mind is thinking. It's like, this is exciting. You're right on target, Todd. This is great. All right, we got 3 hours of him just feeling sorry for himself. But once you have that day of discussion, your mind's like, whoa. And now it's becoming your worst. It's going from your worst enemy, your mind, to now developing in habits and consistency to like your best friend. So your mind is either your worst enemy, the enemy is the enemy, or it's like, I love you. And that's that love for yourself. It's really your love for your brain and your mind. That's what that love for that self, because if you can control this through meditation, through self-awareness, then, look out, world. You won't really have a day of disgust anymore, because you have taken your power back, and you will stand strong and stand firm in that, and stand always in your truth. And we need more people right now that are standing in their truth more than ever. And it's not going to feel good. You're going to feel alone many, many times, but you don't have to be alone. Hopefully me and Emmanuel, I mean, even though this is virtual, you're in Utah and I'm in Illinois, we're your friend. Like John Maxwell always says, hi, my name is John and I'm your friend. Well, my name is Todd and I'm your friend. And, your name is Emmanuel and you're everyone's friend. So we're just here to serve. We're just here to help, because as a coach, you're a coach, I'm a coach, you're a practitioner, but pretty much, we're helping people. You hear the horror stories that people are going through, and I hear the horror stories, and it's never been easy for us either, me and you personally. So I think hopefully that helps answer those questions. But I think once you really have that self-awareness, like, whoa, this can never happen again. No, 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 no. And you start really taking those proactive steps, you really do become your own Superman, your own Superwoman.
Yeah, and I think too, like, it reminds me of that Napoleon Hill quote, where it says that, in every adversity there's an equal or greater benefit,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a tendency, even myself, where when a door is closing, I just stare at that doorknob and I'm just looking at it, going like,
Mm-hmm.
that door is still closing. Look at it's bronze, and I just stare at it for too
Mm-hmm.
long. And like two
Good.
doors behind me just opened up, and I really feel like kind of like that fruit. There's a Imogen Heap song that I love where it says, "There's beauty in the breakdown."
Oh, I love that song. It's like my top 5 song of all time. That's why we're like brothers, dude. Everything you like, I like. Everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you don't get emotional during the end of Garden State, you've got some serious.
Oh my God, best movie, best soundtrack. Yeah, I love it.
I just showed my wife that movie, and I was like, that was pretty romantic, right? But yeah, so anyway, but that's very powerful wisdom from Imogen Heap, that there's beauty in the breakdown, and I think that as we break down these energies from us, we're gonna be. It's kind of scary, but it's like, would you like to know as a client that when we break down these energies, you may be more vulnerable to find out who you really are? See, some people, that's even scary. Again, that's why I feel like the teenagers love to put their headphones on, because they don't want to hear the voices that are in their heads, but it's like self-evaluation and self-analysis is definitely the most exciting but most scary thing to do in your life, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it.
It's because
every area where you feel stuck in, it's due to lack of self-analysis. It's really what it is, So let's talk about this too. In the body code, there's a thing called post-hypnotic suggestions. Okay, so post-hypnotic suggestions, you see on the body code app, there's like this person listening to headphones, but that's not always the case. What I've noticed is, and I worked with a guy today where I can't remember what it was. It's like, I can't handle this. That's what it was. I can't handle this. And I asked him, like, is this something you gained a year ago, 5 years ago? And I was muscle testing his body. I said, no. I'm like, is this kind of like a home thing? And the body said, yes. He knew exactly who said that all the time. And guess who it was? It was his mother. His mother used to say, I can't handle this. Like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. I can't handle this,
Right,
and then the little baby is just kind of floating around there. The little teenager's going around there. Here's the mom saying, I can't handle this. But now here's the problem, that the teen now believes, I can't handle this. And I even made it, and he was a musician, this client that I was working with, and I said, I guarantee Kurt Cobain from Nirvana had a I can't handle this, because when he became famous, he couldn't handle his fame and he sabotaged himself. So to you, I know on the conscious side, you're really big on affirmations, like, but again, Jim Rohn says affirmations without action is
meaningless.
What does he say?
Meaningless.
Meaningless, yeah, it's meaningless, right? Or it's the beginning of delusion, I believe. Also.
Yeah.
So I think, what do you do so that you go, okay, I am going to make some affirmations, but I have a game plan to match the affirmations. Like, what's your way to do that?
So instead of telling you what everyone else is going to tell you, well, you have to write down special words and share your words and say them out loud. And dadgummit, you are beautiful. I mean, I get all that, but let me take a step further of like the reality of things. Every single one that's watching this has had wins. Does that make sense? Like, everyone's watching this, like, has had wins in their life. I remember when I won my first cross country meet. I remember when I won states. I remember breaking a 4-minute mile. I remember winning the championship in Little League when I was a kid. I remember doing Ironmans and coming in 3rd in the San Francisco Marathon. So that's all athletic stuff, but I'll just kind of use that as an example. So let's say I have when I'm down and out, of course, I'm sitting there in that thought, but I'm thinking, okay, I'm Todd Cahill. So that right there is an affirmation. It's like, and of course, I'm Emmanuel Zavai. Like, you just saying your name, I'm Todd Cahill. And it's no one's hearing you. You're not like saying it in front of people, like weird, but I think it really just comes down to the power of you, and there's no one like you. You're unique. You're one out of 400 trillion. Or, it's crazy, right? Like just the fact that you're alive and you're born, and you're from this two people, and your DNA, and it's crazy, right? Well, but you have to get to that point of where do you get your confidence from? It's through small successful attempts in the past. So once you can get to that point where you're like, well, I suck and I'm a loser. And like we say this all the time to ourselves, unfortunately. You've got to get that point like, wait a minute, look what I did last year. Look what I did this year. Almost review your accomplishments, review the good thing. Because a lot of times even people are the worst. People are the best and people are the worst. So you might have a spouse or an ex or that's constantly, you never did this. You always did this. You always did this. And it's so negative. And then because you're associated around it, you kind of buy into that. Like, oh my God, maybe I really was it. And, narcissism, that term is used like if somebody doesn't do what you want, nowadays, everyone's a narcissist. So, it's really just a behavior. It's a selfish behavior. That's all narcissism is. It's just, I'm always thinking of myself. I want to be in control. But even that person, if you go back to their childhood, you probably feel almost bad for them. Because like their father was never there, or maybe he was there too much and just let him. So it's almost like you still have to have the compassion, but that doesn't mean you have to take anything that they're telling you. Because we are going to live in a world, especially social media, that you could be famous or you could be, 100 likes a day. Someone is not going to like you. They are going to make fun of you. And what me and you have already have experienced through our own success is haters. I mean, whether it's a hater that has a fake Facebook profile and is inboxing people negative things about us, or making us try to, because a lot of times haters don't like to see people rise up. But if you can get to that point of peace and just be like, this is cool. And it's such a weird mindset. It's like, this is cool. Someone's making fun of me. And this is actually powerful because dogs don't bark at parked cars. And of course, 1918, Theodore Roosevelt, that amazing speech about being in the battlefield, or being, and Brene Brown talks about it all the time. In fact, she built her brand around that speech of Theodore Roosevelt. It's like, it's about the critic. Like the critic really, really doesn't matter. And that means you're doing something big with your life. And yeah, sure, it hurts, but it doesn't have to hurt. Look at, I mean, geez, anybody that's famous, I mean, like him or not, our president, I mean, Kardashians, Justin Bieber, 50% hate him, so it is what it is, but that's living a life on purpose. That's all that means. And of course we could even point to Jesus Christ. I mean, come on. He was loved and literally had a parade. A week later, he was getting crucified. I mean, it blows my mind, but it makes you think like people haven't changed 2,000 years later. We're still dealing with a lot of that even today in 2020, if not worse, and so, because of social media and stuff. So that's why you have to really get that confidence in yourself. Know that it doesn't matter what's happening around you. You're called. You have an anointing on your life. There's a vision in your life. You're unique. God's called you for greatness. And that could be you working at a grocery store. That could be you being a construction worker. It doesn't, you don't have to have an amazing multi-six-figure job, but it just, whatever you're doing, be the best dang janitor that you can be the best leader that you can be the best, whatever you choose, just be the best you can be, no matter what anyone tells you can or cannot do.
That's really powerful that you said that. I noticed too, speaking about Jesus there, I was, by age 12, he was already speaking to all these amazing rabbis, and kind of like, he knew the good book, back of his hand, because he knew he was the one speaking to the prophets before he came here. And what's interesting is that if he knew what was going to happen to him, when they talk about, spikes in the feet and dogs ravenous around me, it's kind of crazy to think that at age 12, he knew that he was going to die. Like at age 12, see, like he knew he was going to die like a very horrible death, but it was a victory. And how many of us would be okay? How many of us would lift our heads up knowing that in a few years, like 15 to 17 years, you were going to die a very horrible, excruciating death? Most of us would be kind of wallowing, going like, oh no, any day now it's going to happen. But that there is kind of like a Gary Vee. I know Gary Vee, he's a really great guy on social media. He sometimes says like, hey, you're going to die. That motivates me. You're going to, and really, honestly, people who are listening right now, we think that we're invincible. We're going to live 30 years. I tell my wife all the time, I scare her sometimes, and maybe one time I made her emotional. I regret doing it, but I remember just saying like babe, tomorrow I might go. It's like I have to live like tomorrow. There is no tomorrow, because there's no contract that says tomorrow is gone or is going to be here, And so I want to end with this real quick. For those of you who appreciate kind of the value we're providing, let me tell you why we can provide this type of value. So we're part of him and I both co-founded an Inside Out Institute, and we created it to be a home for transformational coaches and energy healers. And it's really, really important that if there's anything that's going to elevate the frequency of this world, it's the fact that everyone needs to rise up as leaders, and there needs to be massive amounts of healing. I mean, if I can just teleport myself to like all the politicians in the world and just heal their hearts and remove all their walls, we could probably switch this whole world around, and we would see changes beyond this. And I really feel like we're creating something that's never been done before. I want to share one of my favorite things, and for those of you who are still going through abuse, maybe at home, or maybe your parents used to abuse you at home. I love this way of living, and I want to share this with you to end this call, and then maybe Todd, you could share your final notes here. Is what Mother Teresa once said. She said, "People are often unreasonable and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you're kind, people may accuse you for ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you're honest, people may cheat you. Be honest anyway. If you find happiness, people may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give your best anyway. For so you see, in the end, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway." Todd, if you want to share any final thoughts for everyone, would love for us to end this call here.
Yeah, I just love what you said. I share like another 60 seconds. There was a book that shifted my life a year ago, and it was called The Untethered Soul. And me and you were in a company where the CEO many, many years ago was really promoting that. And for some reason, I just never really, bought into it. But I read the book because I hired a coach in Canada, and she just was talking about it. And I think it was chapter 17 that touched my life, and it was about death. The whole chapter, it's about death. And it was coming not from a morbid place, but a very practical and very inspirational place. And I really encourage everyone to read Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And from there on out, and this was about a year plus ago, and that's where for me, I started to get the vision of this whole Inside Out Institute, what we do, and then collaboration. And then you came in a couple months later, and but that's what kind of drove the whole thing, is because and here's my point. I didn't want to do just something. Does that make sense? I think a lot of times people settle with like a job because it has a salary. Or for me, I'm an author, but there's millions of authors, and I'm a coach. There's millions of coaches. They're all over the place. I mean, everyone nowadays is a coach, and they could be a millennial and they're 24, and I'm a coach. I'm a life coach. And I laugh at it. Like, what can you coach anyone on? But there's a lot of competition. So I didn't want to go just that way. Not that I'm scared of competition, but I just want to do something that was different, that was more to the heart, to the soul, that spoke to people's like real true problems and not their surfacey. And even like the goals and the dreams and all that stuff, even the you versus you stuff, that's cool. But look, you're never going to go after your dreams and goals if you feel horrible every day. You're never going to go after your dreams and your goals if you don't shift your perspective. If you woe is me, or a pity party, or if you're entitled, or you have a poverty mentality, we've got to emote, and that's where you come in, the subconscious work. We've got to emotionally remove the bad energies to replace them with good energies, and then start living that life on purpose, but also knowing you don't have a lot of time. So it's like, when are you going to get fixed? Okay. It's like you have a car, it's really, really dirty. And like every day you're like, one day I'm going to bring it, and it just keeps getting dirtier and smellier and smellier and dirtier and older looking. And like, one day I'll get it washed. One day I'll get it washed. And you never wash your car. Well, you're living in the filth and you're living in that dirt. You don't have to do that anymore. Go get washed. Go change your life tonight. Contact us. Let's talk about your future. Let's talk about the traumas. Let's start to get rid of these for you. And let's set up a free call that we can direct you and give you the kind of outcomes that you really are looking for without the nonsense. This isn't an infomercial. For $9.95, for 3 easy payments of $19.95, you and a guest can join our institute, and we'll change your life forever for $69. That's not how it is. It's a lot more than that. It's more of your personal desire to want to change something inside of you. That's where it comes from. And if you don't have that, then there's nothing that anyone on this planet can do for you. Even God, there's nothing that God can do for you, because you have to desire. Knock in the door, seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall be open unto you. It's that law of attraction. You have to be open. The universe doesn't conspire for you. If you're sitting there like, I hate my life, I'm so depressed, the universe is going to be like, all right, next. And even the universe thinks you're too depressed, so they're going to go someone else, and bless someone else. So you have to be open. You have to be in receiving mode. You can't be like this. Even with the gift of God's love, you have to ask for it. You have to receive it. You can't, nah, I'm good, bro, I'm good. You're never going to have the blessings.
I totally agree. That's a great message, and I really hope that everyone takes it to heart, that we do really care about our souls here, our spirits, and our current life here. I mean, in the span of everything, we're like, 70 or 80 years is just like a little hairline in the whole huge expanse of eternity, and what are we really doing here, in the end, and if you're not following your heart, if you're not following your mission, what are we really doing here, and so thank you guys so much for being on here. We do care the fact that, if you did go through some trauma in your past, it's like, hey, you just noticed that you just talked to 2 guys right now that are being vulnerable, saying we've been through some of that stuff. Yeah. And we're here and we're succeeding in life, and you can be successful too. There's like, God doesn't love Todd more than he loves you. God doesn't love me more than he loves you. Yep. You can actually do it. And I really do mean it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I look forward to meeting you guys next time. Take care.
See you guys. Thanks so much.